The High Ground, one of the most infamous lines in all of Star Wars. The High Ground has come to be known as a meme amongst the fandom, but in reality, the High Ground actually determined the winner of the notorious duel between Obi-Wan versus Anakin. So what if, in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin had the high ground instead of Obi-Wan? As the two duel on the lava plain, they swing for each other's throats. Anakin was extremely aggressive and used all of his brute strength to try and overwhelm Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan's mastery of defense neutralized this. As their blades locked, Anakin notices the bank next to them, and before Obi-Wan can jump to it, Anakin leaps onto the elevated plane. He stares down at his old master and declares that he has the high ground. Obi-Wan is stuck. He has nowhere to go but forward towards Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan would approach the situation differently. He wasn't nearly as arrogant as Anakin, and you attempting to leap above him like he did with Maul was very dangerous. Instead, Obi-Wan would jump to safety at the bottom of the bank and re-engage with Anakin. Even Master Kenobi knew about the weaknesses of the low ground and knew the dire situation he was in. The only way he would survive was if he could win. But Anakin, the chosen one, would not let this happen. They clashed blades a couple of times, the high ground giving Anakin the advantage he so desperately desired, and he eventually slices Kenobi's wrists, causing him to drop his blade. He takes one last look at Anakin, hoping to connect to the man he once was, but all he saw was Darth Vader. Anakin uses the Force to push Kenobi backwards, and he watches and listens as he fell into the depths of the Mustafar lava lake. After the death of Kenobi, Anakin would go to Padme, placing her aboard their ship, and they would leave the planet, going back to Coruscant immediately for medical aid. Rushed into labor, she would give birth with the love of her life by her side. In this moment, Padme would lay eyes on her husband and discover that he is still alive, causing her to not succumb to a broken heart and continue living. She knows the atrocities that he has committed, but still believes deep down that there is good in him. Their children Luke and Leia are born and are healthy. Anakin has everything he has ever wanted. As for Palpatine, Anakin would contact him and inform his master of his victory against Obi-Wan. This was it. Now the Sith had won, once and for all, and Palpatine knew this. He tells his apprentice to return to Coruscant at once. After Anakin saw his wife and newborn baby, he would be drowning in the dark side, completely soaked in its allure and faith in its cause. Because of the darkness, he was able to save Padme. In the original timeline, Anakin didn't kill Sidious because he was the only person he had left in his life. Now that couldn't be any further from the truth. Anakin had ambition. He desired to rule the galaxy with his family by his side. He saw the future, him and Padme atop of the galaxy, with their children as their successors, the new royal family of the galaxy. Anakin would go and join his master as they watch Mas Amedda and the Empire burn all of the lightsabers from within the Jedi Temple after the Purge. Sidious couldn't contain his smirk. He was delighted. His entire life's work had succeeded. But Anakin wasn't there to view lightsabers being cremated. He had a different goal in mind. He moves his hand to the hilt of his lightsaber, declaring to his master that his time as Emperor is over. Igniting his saber, he swings for Palpatine, who quickly blocks. They begin leaping atop of the night sky on Coruscant, fighting to see who is the most powerful being in the galaxy. But Sidious was still extremely weakened after two intense duels against Yoda and Mace Windu, and his age was getting to him. Anakin, on the other hand, is in his prime. His youth and power has not faltered, but only grown in the last few days. Sidious shoots Force Lightning at Anakin to temporarily neutralize him, but Anakin's sapphire blade caught it, and like Windu did, pressed it right back onto Sidious's wrinkled face. The Emperor fell to the floor. He had been defeated. As Palpatine stared up into the golden eyes of his apprentice, he did not fear death, but welcomed it. Even with his death, he had succeeded. No one would ever have the power to overthrow Lord Vader for the rest of time. The Sith had won. the rule of two is finished. After Anakin kills Palpatine, he assumes control of the Galactic Empire. His ascent to power is swift and brutal as he solidifies his status as Emperor. The Emperor was the most powerful title in the galaxy, but he also maintained the position of Chancellor, electing his wife Padme Amidala to become the Supreme Chancellor of the Senate. With the destruction of the Order, he goes back to the temple, to the site of his greatest massacre. Rising up the elevator to the top tower and into the Jedi Council chambers, he gazes around the room to the place filled with the Jedi he resented most. Anakin went from seat to seat, mocking their memory. He always hated Operan Sissus and let out a laugh as he sat in his chair. He was glad that he was dead, but jealous of the clone that murdered him. He craved that satisfaction. As Anakin sat in Plo Koon's seat, then Kit Fisto's seat, he was delighted. He felt free. As he looked upon Obi-Wan's chair, for the briefest moments, he felt a sharp pain in his chest, until he remembered that Obi-Wan never truly cared about him. Suddenly, the rage had returned and become stronger than ever. He marched over to Mace Windu's seat and sat down with force. He stared upon the center of the room. This was Windu's perspective when he denied him the rank of Master, denied him his birthright. With his lightsaber hilt in hand, he dismantled the weapon that had once been a symbol to his Jedi identity. As he gazed upon the Kyber crystal inside, as he gazed upon the Kyber crystal at its core, he poured the overwhelming hatred, anger, and pain that he harbored for the Jedi Order into it. Flashes of his old life as the Jedi rushed through his mind, memories of how they treated him. He felt his body shake and be thrusted from side to side as he continued to pour his anger into the saber. The crystal bled, its once pure color transformed into a crimson red. Anakin would grow into the most powerful and ruthless ruler that the galaxy had ever seen. From the moment they could walk, Anakin had Luke and Leia training in the ways of the Force. Both twins are extraordinarily gifted, and Anakin's tutelage only amplifies their innate abilities. Their training is intense and unrelenting, and they quickly become powerful Force users in their own right. As the years passed and they grew older, they grew into Anakin's right-hand soldiers. He had no need for Inquisitors when the two most promising Force users were by his side. For sport and training, he sent them out into the galaxy to hunt down any remaining Jedi, murdering Jedi Master Eth Koth in his own home before slaughtering his wife. They were ruthless and possessed no redeeming qualities. Leia's ambition for the dark side was sickening. All she lived for was the disgusting pursuit of murder. Nothing else brought her as much satisfaction. She was truly the daughter of the Emperor. But Luke was even more powerful, his natural brute strength allowing him to become one of the most feared and strong Sith Lords of all time. Anakin had broken the rule of two with the introduction of his twin children as his apprentices, but that didn't matter. It wasn't like anyone could come close to stopping them. Anakin's strength grows exponentially. He explores the darkest corners of the Force, delving into ancient Sith lore. With no master to teach him the skills, he must do it on his own. His level of Force power is so strong that when he first emits Force lightning, it isn't the usual sapphire blue, but instead, like his lightsaber, screams a terrifying crimson red. It was the most powerful Force lightning ever known in history. After decades of practice and meditation, he unlocks the forbidden ability known only to Darth Nihilus, the power to consume planets. This dreaded ability allows him to drain the life force of entire worlds, bending them to his will. This negates the need for a Death Star, as if a planet didn't bow before him, he would simply snap his fingers and they would all be dead. He becomes a force of nature, feared and unstoppable. Anakin's reach extends across the galaxy, and his rule is enforced with an iron fist. His power is absolute, and he rules with an authoritarian grip. He becomes an invincible force, feared and revered, with Padme and his children by his side. The galaxy is forever scarred by the shadow of the Sith Empire, and the hope for a return to the light becomes but a distant memory. Or does it? Thank you guys for watching today's video. I know they got quite dark towards the end there, but this is how I truly believe these events would play out. Poor Padme, she never wanted any of this. I know it's crazy to think that changing the smallest and most silly detail in the storyline would have such an immense change on things, but that simply would happen. Anakin would kill Obi-Wan and Mustafar. He was so much more powerful at that point, and no one can argue otherwise. Obi-Wan only won due to Anakin's arrogance, which you could very easily argue that would come into play again later into the duel. But honestly, I think that Anakin would just kill Obi-Wan. But I am open to hear your guys' thoughts on that, and if you think Obi-Wan would still have beaten Anakin despite him having the low ground. Another person who wasn't really mentioned was Yoda. That's because there's nothing the little guy could do to stop Anakin's ascendancy. But if you guys would like to see what would happen if he perhaps trains a small batch of Jedi to fight back against Anakin, then I would love to do that. Thanks again for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Tell me below what video you would like me to cover next, and I will see you in the next video.